Rogues podcast. I, of course, am Joaquin Phoenix, and this is Troy Baker. Just a couple of jokers talking about House of the Dragon.
That does sound like who I am. It sounds right. I love it.
Yep. We don't have Noah this week. We fed him to the dragons because he no longer likes Game of Thrones. No, he has some sort of rehearsal for his third job. It seems like so. He's a busy boy. That's all right. We love him. We miss him. We'll catch him next time. Coach actually likes Game of Thrones, so this could be a fun
Love it.
time.
Love it. Love it.
Oh
Love it.
yeah, joining me is Coach DeLong from the Marvel Stuff podcast. So
Hey there, that's me. Oh my gosh, I love this. I love this show so much. I am in nerd heaven. It's football season. It's two awesome shows coming out. A little bit of Marvel sprinkled in. This is a good time.
yeah, it's a good time to be alive. Just right here. This is like the sweet spot. End of summer, early fall. It seems like everybody's like. I think people are going to spend more time inside. So here we go. Clearly,
Let's do this. Let's
yes.
talk. Did you guys talk about episode 1 already?
We did talk about episode 1. We have not talked about episode
Sorry.
2 yet. We were going to record yesterday before the new episode came out, but that is not what we did. So we're doing it a little bit different. We're going to do 2 episodes right here back to back. And me and Coach are going to handle it like badasses. That's what's going to happen.
It doesn't sound like anything I've ever done before, but I can surely, I'll Google it. We'll see what's good.
Okay, Google badass. And then when you get through all the pictures of Chuck Norris, then let me know what you find.
A little dated, but
I know, that's why I said it. What is the modern day badass really?
I don't know.
Is
probably
it The
John
Rock?
Wick, I guess.
It's John Wick, The Rock, one of those. It's somewhere in there. But we're here to talk about House of the Dragon, episode 2, The Rogue Princess. I got a bunch of notes on this one, and then we're going to talk about episode 3, and I did not take as many notes because we just watched it.
Perfect.
Good. Episode 2, we kick off with another meeting of the small council. Coach, you haven't been here yet, obviously, like we just said. So, what do you think of the show so far? And I guess what are you really looking for moving forward?
It's super cool. Production value is similar as the end of Game of Thrones. It has a very similar art style to it. Everything sort of fits within the universe's structure of the way they tell the stories. Obviously, this one's a little more focused, as it's a singular family. So everything's a little more streamlined, getting things moving. As you can tell, like you said in episode 2. Right at that small council, we realize immediately it's been like 6 months, right? So you kind of realize they're going to move this story along, whereas it felt like Game of Thrones took 8 seasons to get like maybe a year and a half. You know what I mean?
Yeah, there's a lot of walking around in Game of Thrones, especially like Arya and the Hound. I feel like they just never stopped going anywhere. They were always on their way to a new place until one of the later seasons. Not that that's a problem, but that is something I've noticed over these first 3 episodes is it feels different because there's not like, I guess, another main character, another main family to kind of jump over to. The exception maybe if you want to say Damien, or Damon, he goes over, to Dragonstone. He's got his war thing going on. But outside of that, it's mostly just the Targaryens hanging out in King's Landing.
There's a definitive main character, right?
Right.
Whereas Game of Thrones, you could argue like it was a Daenerys, was it Jon Snow? And then also, I mean, Arya had her own full story all the way through. So did Sansa. So there's like easily 4 to 5.
You didn't even mention the Lannisters.
Characters.
That's a whole nother like family drama going on, and we got a peek of that in episode 3. That's a little bit of a teaser, though.
So
we'll get to that eventually.
Obviously, this story gets to move a little bit because this has a definitive main character in Rhaenyra. How did they say that?
Rhaenyra, Rhaenyra, I believe. Yes.
There's other characters that are going to get a lot of screen time. The king gets a lot of time, but she is definitively the main character of this season. So it means things move, and they get to do it with time jumps so they can make a little more sense.
Well, that's a different thing because the books themselves, the Game of Thrones books were kind of written that way where you're just along for the ride. But then this one, Fire and Blood, it's a lot of jumping between generations of Targaryens. So I think they're taking a little bit of influence from that. I mean, so far we've only jumped 6 months and then 2 years. So we're not like making leaps and bounds into the next generation of people so much. But
yeah, I would bet at least this season, I will bet stays within this generation. I don't know if the whole like reboot of House of Dragons will or not, but season 1 seems like it's going to stay within this lifestyle.
I mean, based on reactions, it seems like they got a hit going on right now. I mean, people
Yeah, that's what
are
makes it
digging
interesting.
Rhaenyra. They actually dig Daemon, which based on the 3rd episode, I'm really rooting for this guy. I'm excited to keep watching him do the Lord's work in a way.
Yeah, it's super interesting, like you said, because they have a hit already. Rhaenyra's already going to be super popular. People are going to love him. Obviously, we know how popular Daenerys was. That it will be interesting at the end of this season comes, and they're like, "Oh, we're going to the next generation." I mean, that
I
could be
hope
the
they
plan. The
don't, but
plan might be
could be.
to a different generation of Targaryens this season, because they're what 4 or 5 generations away. I mean, 187
From what
years.
we know, yes, in the Game of
It's,
Thrones proper.
So I don't know how close they plan on getting, but they could.
They don't
They
have
could
to
be.
rush it. That's the thing. They could just
But it
stick
seems
with
like
these
they
characters. I
I mean,
know,
we're 3 episodes in.
but we're
and
getting a return
we'll
to
stay on
modern
episode 2
day
now.
Westeros. I mean, we're getting the Jon Snow series later, but yes, episode 2. After Lord Corleos comes in, he says he wants to seize the Stepstones because they're under attack from the Triarchy, Lys, Mir, and Tyrosh. Are these all like the free cities that we saw Daenerys kind of explore in the series? Tyrosh sounds familiar, but I don't quite remember.
They're not necessarily all cities we saw, but it is the general area. It is where they're coming from. The free cities are the same.
Essos,
Cities, but
I
they're
feel
not
like they
necessarily-
have. It's not Westeros, but it's like Essos. It has a different name,
Essos,
but
yeah.
Essos, yeah. There we go. But yeah, interesting
Just
stuff. It's
Essos instead of
yeah,
West.
I know what it is.
So clever.
I know. You'd think so, but yeah, that's more just planting seeds for what's to come at the end of this episode and clearly into the next episode. But I put a note of it because it is important. They say it right off the bat. Puts a little bit of a divide between Viserys and his, I guess, what is it? His cousin's husband, Lord Corleos, or Corlys, whatever, however you pronounce it.
Super tool is what I call him.
Yep. Well, Daemon comes hot off the heels of saying the heir for a day, which was pretty shitty of him to say.
Clutch line though.
It is a clutch line. He gets banished back, to wherever he was supposed to be with his wife, but instead he sees his Dragonstone. No surprise.
No, but it is like I said. It's interesting to think that like they say that by saying he's been there for 6 months, which like gives you this idea that like he's been there. They haven't done anything about it. You're like, oh, that's kind of interesting.
Yeah, they didn't roll credit like how some movies or TV shows will say like 6 months later. They were more strategic about it, where they just kind of I don't know if you wanted, they crowbarred it in every once in a while, but at the same time you needed someone to say something. Because there wasn't enough like drastically different between 6 months. I mean, obviously the 2-year jump, there's a very clear representation of those 2 years happening.
But yeah, no, it was interesting. I like the idea that Deimos is able to have his own little family colony thing, the drama that it creates. But in some ways, I like it because if you think about it, it feels much more realistic than like the weird power dynamics that were happening with the Lannisters on the throne.
Right, yeah.
Where it felt like everybody got to be king for 3.5 weeks. You know what I mean?
Yeah, what were there, like 7 kings at one point in that show? So, I mean, it's not as drastic where... I don't even know if that had ever happened in the past. Didn't they say that the way back in the day, the North was its own kingdom? I feel like they referenced that. But at this point, they're all part of...
yeah, when the Targaryens
the
showed
7
up with all their
kingdoms.
dragons, that's when it became the 7 kingdoms. But yeah, it's interesting. It makes it feel more real. It makes it feel like there's a real political tension, and you can't just like in a single day kind of snuff out this sort of rebellion. It doesn't seem that the king wants to anyway, but
Yeah. Okay. Well, at this point, I mean, Rhaenyra kind of tries to get herself involved in the small council meeting, gets kicked out, but she's given a little bit of power that comes into play later, where she gets to select a new member of the Kingsguard. And I'm excited for some more Kingsguard stuff, because those guys they're very interesting because they're sworn to the crown, but it seems like they really are sworn to themselves a lot of the time.
yeah, a lot of the knight stuff is interesting. A lot of just the deep cool. That's like the stuff that I love, right? I'm like, ooh,
Right.
yeah, knights, cool. I want to see them be cool knights.
I loved her flexing all of them. Like, how many of you have battle experience? Oh, just the one? Looks like he wins. Like, that's pretty clutch, actually. No politics at all.
No, that stuff was fun. I'm excited. I like everything she does. I mean, obviously,
Yeah.
I just like watching her be the queen. Not necessarily because I think she'll be a good queen or not, but she'd certainly be an interesting one.
I agree. He did select Kristen Cole, though. Or she selected Kristen Cole. And for some reason, I'm really rooting for this guy. I just can't get enough of him. He seems like he's going to be I don't know what character to comp him to in the previous series. What was Tyrion's left hand man? What's his name?
Yeah,
Errol, kind of.
it could be sort of like that. We'll see. We'll see if he ends up developing that way, or maybe he goes like sort of the Brianna Tarth way, where he has his own missions and stuff. But
Yeah, I dig him though. I was glad that she selected him to be part of the Kingsguard, and it was awesome. Jumping up a little bit, Viserys is afraid to talk to his daughter about his mother and wants to keep his talks with Alicent Hightower private, which is just laying the seeds, laying the foundation for them eventually to get sworn to each other, married. I
too heavy.
I don't like it.
That stuff didn't feel as Game of Thrones because it felt so like heavy-handed. Hey, this is how this episode's gonna end, just so you know. You know what I mean? It felt like
Yeah,
I get it.
that's true.
So part of me got towards the end was like, are they gonna pull a Game of Thrones and he's actually gonna make a different choice? But I mean, it felt a little heavy-handed. I didn't love it. I like I like the character though. I think she's like
Allison's great, but it's just creepy no matter what way you do it. She's 15, or you had to marry his like 12-year-old second cousin or whatever it was. Just bunch of nonsense politics.
I try to just remember it was the time. It was the time.
I
It's
know.
the way it is, man.
Still gross.
Just because we think it's gross, maybe we're wrong. Maybe we're a bunch of dum dums. I don't think so.
I
like
don't
to
think
that
that's
we've
the
gotten
case.
smarter in time, but I suppose
Yep.
we'll leave it
So,
up to fans.
yeah, like you said, a little heavy-handed. We already know what's going to happen at the end of this episode, but we jump over. There's a bestie prayer scene between Alicent and Rhaenyra. They just talk about their the dead mother. Kind of really explores their friendship a little bit more.
Yeah. I don't care.
Did they seem like really good friends in these first 2 episodes, or is it more like out of convenience you're someone roughly my age?
Yeah, I never got the feel. I mean, it doesn't feel like they're great friends. It feels like, but when you're in that world, you probably don't have a lot of friends. What it shows to me is Allison's very sweet. She's a nice person, so we know that setting the foundation. Wherever that leads us, if she ends up being, manipulative or whatever, at least we knew early on she really was a nice person. Kind of just wanted to be nice and care about people. So that it sets that up. I don't know that it sets up the friendship that well because it's. Meh.
I mean, it obviously crumbles and almost non-existent by the end of this. But we'll talk about. We don't need to go in like a specific order. I just figured we hit on a couple of good points. We have the council meetings, a lot of politicking, everybody trying to come up with a plan for the king to take on a new wife. I mean, they only gave him 6 months, which seems rough, but at the same time, you're the king, and everybody wants to get a piece of the kingdom, type of thing.
It's certainly interesting. Again, it's a little undercut by like we knew it was going to happen. I think the whole hand of the king sending his daughter over there, it
Yeah.
felt like we knew what was going to happen the whole time. So it makes those scenes a little less impactful. But I do like who's like the shorter, chubbier guy who's on the council. I don't know his name.
I don't either, but he's great though. He's
But
been
he's
fun.
good.
Yeah,
He
because
is.
he's always like, we're going ahead of ourselves, but in episode 3 he has a pretty impactful scene as well. So he's a fun guy. This council, not as big of a fan as I was in Game of Thrones so far. I mean, we had Littlefinger and oh lord, what was the bald guy's name?
No, I kind of like him. I don't know.
It doesn't matter. The eunuch.
Eunuch,
Yeah.
whatever his name is.
Yeah,
I always
yeah.
just call him the eunuch. I don't know. I kind of like him. I'm kind of about it. I feel good about it.
The new hand, I mean, he seems just as skeevy as Littlefinger. I will give him that. I mean, he essentially supplanted his young daughter into the chambers of the king and told her to dress up all nice and grossness.
I mean, it's skeevy, but it doesn't feel as betrayal like as Littlefinger. Like it felt like Littlefinger was actively betraying people all the time.
It's true. Will the
he's
hand
kinda
get to
like-
that point, though? I mean, he seems to be hinting that he wants his grandson to marry the older sister, which is gross, and just
mean, he
lots of that
wants-
weird stuff.
To me, that was an interesting thought because it's like, would that help him become king? I mean, his obvious goal is to have his grandson be king.
Right.
But yeah, the interesting decision to try to do the marriage thing, I didn't feel like whatever. That's episode 3.
Yeah, we'll get into that in the next episode. But yeah, just little notes that the Hightowers, keep an eye on them. That's all I really got to say about them. Daemon rolls up, steals a dragon egg, knows what's up. It's the one that Rhaenyra had chosen for her younger brother that never got to sleep in the crib with them. And by the end of the episode, she marches in like a badass on a dragon and just like, no war. I'm just gonna take this and you're gonna give it to me. And I was a big fan of like boss moves, Rhaenyra.
The dragon coming in from the smoke was dope.
Oh yeah, for sure.
It looked cool. It was cool. It's two dope dragons facing off each other. I was about that life. That's the cool stuff. That's what the selling point of House of Dragons is, right? It's the time of the Dragon Wars. There's like, what, 18 dragons?
I think they said 10, might be 18 though. Yeah.
Yeah, maybe I'm thinking of the books, but it's cool stuff. That stuff looks cool. Again, we get to learn a little bit of their world building, that kind of history, that idea that they sleep with the dragon eggs when they're born. Is kind of interesting. You kind of
adding to the lore of the Targaryens. And I mean, George R. R. Martin's had no qualms about kind of, I don't even know if you want to call it favoritism, but a little bit. I mean, they got their own book already, so I think he's just intrigued on exploring that part of his creation more than others.
So
yeah, that does make them more interesting than, guarding the wall when nothing's attacking the wall yet.
What I liked most about this whole setup was the girl, this idea that this brothel lady that he hooked up with, and
I
was
about to note on that.
I didn't realize. I believed him. I believed that they were getting married and she was pregnant. And it turns out it was a lie. So they got me. They got me with that.
Yeah, they got me too. I could have sworn that's exactly what he was going to do. He wanted to take a second wife for his Queen of Dragonstone, and he chose a whore from King's Landing. And I was like, this reminds me of Tyrion and his whore that his dad wanted to kill like the entire season or whatever that was. There's some interesting, connections there. We didn't get any second look at the whore and his potential heir in the third episode. So maybe she's not that important. Maybe she'll come around later.
I mean, yeah. It's not. No, she said she can't have kids, but she says it in episode 2, right? She says, like, I told you that kids isn't a thing, something like that. Something.
I thought she said she didn't want kids, but maybe you might be right. It's one of the two.
I thought it was like she couldn't.
Well, that would make it even better.
To me, makes it a little more intriguing. It makes me think
I agree.
Like, why is he with her if he knows he can't have an heir? But maybe he just likes her.
I think he's just into her. Yeah. I don't know.
Other things. Cool. I'm gonna stay on the Damon track here because I really liked the scene, sort of towards the end.
Lord Corlys.
Yeah, I like that scene, the whole alliance thing. But then the like, hey, I can talk about my brother. You can suck dongs.
I loved that. Yeah, that's some real family stuff. You're like, I'm allowed to talk shit about my siblings as much as I want, but the minute you do, you're an asshole. So don't do it.
Well, let's remember, you're still Corlys, Lord of no one gives a shit. All right, so let's.
The only thing you got going for you is you have Valyrian blood. That's it. I mean, and you're married to like the queen that never was, so it's like you're kind of irrelevant.
Yeah, he's a clown. I'm not a big fan of that guy, but
I like their hair. I like how they have just like white dreadlocks. I'm like, hey man, that's cool. I mean, it's an interesting concept.
My brother Jordan does it every time he plays a fantasy game. Plays Skyrim, plays Dragon Age, whatever it is. Anytime he's got a chance, he's going to make a black guy with white dreads. He's been doing it forever. So it's good for him that he finally gets a little representation on the big screen. But I always hated it when he did as a kid. I was like, just make your guy look normal.
He said,
look like
nope.
an idiot, Jordan.
Well, you know what? Shout out to Jordan. Hopefully he's listening. We'll get him on this pod at some point, maybe. He's a big House of Dragon fan too.
Huge Game of Thrones fan, yeah.
Yeah, him and I, all of us really. I mean, we've read the books, watched the show, and Jordan, when he gets obsessed on something, he's the same as me, and you dive in way deeper than you need to. Great stuff. That's kind of the end of that episode. Lord Corlys is going behind Viserys' back, trying to make an alliance with the brother, and clearly in 2 years they followed through with that. So,
yeah, the Alice fallout. I mean, again, it's more realistic because it's not going to just happen in a day. They wouldn't plot to poison her within 6 months or whatever. So all that stuff kind of set up well. Right, we see Rhaenyra just being upset. What's she going to do about it? Because, the other thing, I mean, she's going to be queen, or so we think.
Yep, everyone had to swear their loyalty to her, and like they bend the knee, and she's gonna be queen. I'm like really hoping that ends up happening, but based on what we kind of know, I don't know if that's gonna be the final outcome.
Yeah, I certainly don't know the answer.
Me either.
But man, it's a good show. There's a lot of fun stuff. Like you said, the castle looks awesome. It's whatever. Stonehenge.
Yeah, one of them. I agree. That's the end of the episode. Cool. Sounds great. This is a fun show. This was a lot of politicking within the show. Not a crazy amount of action, I would say. And there was, yeah, I mean, I'm not complaining. Some people were starting to get like bored, and I especially got the complaint in this next episode. Except the end is essentially just like Damon being the most badass character in the freaking show. So
there's just no way. First off, no. Before we, no.
I agree with you.
This can't happen. You can't complain. This already has more action than Game of Thrones did.
I know.
One season that had a bunch of action, all we did is complain about it.
That's true.
Right? All anyone did is complain about season 8 despite having the most action. And we're just sitting and be like, oh, this one's kind of slow. But no. Can't have it. Get over yourselves if you're out there on the internet whining. All right? This is fun. It's a fun show. The whole point is you set up moments so when the fighting comes, it means something. It's cool.
Yeah. Plus, you got payoffs like years and years later. That's my favorite part about these shows is just the politicking that sometimes doesn't come to fruition until like 3 seasons later. Remember when Bran Stark just completely disappeared for like a season and a half, and then all of a sudden he's the king at the end? Like, this is the type of shit that's cool.
But
no, but you know what I'm saying. He was gone for a while, and then he came back, and all of a sudden he's the most important character.
This episode's a good example of. We'll skip around, but we'll talk about this villain, right? The crab eater, right? This is why I both love this show and think it's not quite as good as Game of Thrones yet. We'll kind of see. He's only been around. He only is introduced for 2 episodes. He exists for 2 episodes. I didn't think he was going to be around a long time. He didn't seem like he was going to be important, but it was a
creepy
little fast,
looking,
right?
almost monster-esque. They didn't really explain if he has like a skin condition or what was going on with that guy, but
it didn't look good. Dragon scale. But anyway, but it was both cool that they set him up and it made that action scene at the end very impactful. We knew the stakes because we knew like he wasn't gonna like be politically outdone and shown up by his brother saving him. So all that stuff was set up and made that action scene really cool. But it feels like because it's a singular story, it was set up at the beginning of this episode, paid off at the end. It's not quite as good as Game of Thrones, where because they jump from character to character, it would just the same amount of screen time.
Right. I don't want it to turn in. Yeah, exactly. I don't want it to turn into like I don't know, like the original Batman show where you build up a villain and then the villain's gone by the end of the episode, and that's just kind of like all wrapped up in a nice, neat bow. It's a lot of old TV shows. It's just kind of what they used to do. I don't want this show to fall into that trap.
Well, yeah, not necessarily villain, but like storyline. I think like you
well, that too.
You want a storyline to wrap up. I think the idea of I just wish the war with the crab eater would have dragged on a little longer, but I think because they're doing these time jumps, they sort of have to. Right? We didn't.
Well, yeah, because I mean, by the way it explains it, they set up the this battle, and then it's 2 years later, so it's
right.
And they were already under attack even in the first episode, so it's 3 years in the making,
which is great for like it makes sense logistically that this battle's been 3 years in the making, but for us the audience, this battle has been an hour and 40 minutes in the making.
Right, so and it's like 17 minutes of screen mention time. That's like it.
Right. So it's not as good as Game of Thrones in that respect, but it's still very good television. That's high quality TV. You set up and then you pay it off with a cool action scene. So in regards to that specific storyline that's weaving through the episode, I thought it was well done. And let's gush about this. Let's gush about the action for a minute while we're on this storyline. I think.
Yeah, I mean we can get back to the name day stuff in a little bit. That's fine. We'll stick on Damon. I got some almost Battle of the Bastard vibes, just Jon Snow mowing down everyone, and they keep sending 2 at a time. He was very Batman-esque. They should have sent like a bunch at him at once, like makes sense to do, but it was way cooler to send 2 at a time or 3 at a time.
Yeah, I almost wish he would have had like a, you know what I mean, send him and like a legion of like 4 guys out there, so that way they can get a couple kills, they can get killed.
Right.
I think that would have been a little better, but
the solo thing was neat.
The whole idea of like the dragon was coming in, and even the dragon couldn't do anything about it
because they were held up in the caves. Yeah, I mean, I love the explanation, so it was fine with me that he like said he's like, I surrender, which come on, he was never actually going to surrender. Whatever. How do you feel about Matt Smith in this show? I think he's really good, but in Game of Thrones, at least the main characters, not a lot of them were like well-established actors, and Matt Smith has quite a resume.
Oh, I don't care. There's nothing I hate more than just being like, oh, we should just get people we don't even know. We're like, what?
I don't
Is he
care at
good?
all. I was
Right.
just seeing what your opinion
At
was
the
because
end
I
of the
like Matt
day,
Smith.
At the end of the day, he is good, and he is good in this show.
Yep.
Whether I knew him, didn't know him, no matter what, like, if it was Tom Cruise, as long as he's like doing good in the show, and it feels like Game of Thrones, I'm happy about it. Matt Smith feels like he belongs in House Targaryen. He feels like a real Daemon, which is fun. So I'm all about it. I think his action was great. I thought the way he, he said Battle of the Bastards, just mowing people down is always fun to watch. I don't know how more arrows don't hit him, but whatever. And then obviously the reveal that it was a trap. I mean, we sort of knew it was a trap because they talked about it a little bit beforehand.
Mm-hmm.
But the springing of the trap and the fact that he like hunted down the crab eater at the
That was nice. I like that too. He's like, okay, I'm out of harm's way because he had an army closing in on him. The dragon comes in for the save. His reinforcements come through, take out the rest of them, and the first thing he thinks to do is go get the leader. He's not going to let him get away with it, which isn't always the first thought with people. So I'm glad he's showing like some sort of competence as far as accomplishing his goals.
Good imagery.
Yeah, he didn't cut off his head. He cut off like his upper body. I'm like, that was dope.
That looked dope. And then just dragged out half his body. That was, yeah, exactly.
Yeah, that was pretty
sick. Way to be different. Like, right, way to be like a little bit creative. Let's have a cool imagery. Let's make it fun. One last thing before we get off to Damon. The dragon crushing the dude who like was.
Oh my god, that was so funny.
Money. Absolute money stuff right there.
You saved me, my prince just crushed. Oh my god, it was
Which
the
is
best.
Like that's what happens.
That's what happens.
It's a dragon. Like what? You're gonna kill a few of your own guys. That's part of having a dragon, man. I'm all about it. So, Prince Damon. That's all I got to say about that storyline going on in this episode.
Other than dragons are badass, and I'm glad that we get to see a lot of them. But we already talked about that. It does look cool.
His dragon looks cool.
His dragon looks
flaps
really cool.
on the back tail. He's very like skin. He's very snake-like. It's very snake and slender.
Yeah, he's got a really long neck. I noticed, which isn't always the case.
Yep, I love that. I love that the dragons have their own unique look. It just, I mean, you could tell the difference between the three of Daenerys' dragons. But they sort of all looked similar.
I mean, they were different color coded, and then like the black one was really big, and the other two weren't as big, kind of thing.
Yeah, but these dragons look very, very distinct. His dragon is a very cool design. You don't see that a lot, so I'm all for that. All right, you go ahead. What's next? What do we?
Yep. So we might as well jump into the primary plot, but secondary interest storyline was, of course, Alicent was impregnated by her father, and well, not her father, but Viserys, the Targaryen father. He had a son, Yippee Skippy. He finally has his official heir, but he is smart and he hasn't actually said that the son's gonna take over. And obviously, we jump to the second name day, which apparently is when you're supposed to name them as an heir. Is that just like insurance that if a baby dies early, or what exactly is this?
I don't think it is. It doesn't seem like it's like the official name. I think it's when you get your kingly sort of official sort of title. You know what I mean? Like how the Queen Elizabeth isn't necessarily named Elizabeth, but like eventually you're Elizabeth. I think it's sort of that. I think you have a name, but then you get like this is your royal name. This is now you're Aegon. Like now you're official.
Sounds pretty culty to me, but anyway.
That's sort of. I mean, it's just sort of classic royal family trope stuff. Yeah, I'm about it. This is the money of the show. This is where I'm all about.
The politicking's great, but it's not as fun as watching dragons just like light things on fire, which isn't entirely true sometimes.
I don't know. I'm all for the drama of like I really want my daughter to be queen. I think she'll be good at it, but like I can't do it.
The kingdom doesn't want a queen. Yeah, it's a tough position for him to be in.
I'm about it.
But yeah, we go to the second name day. They're doing another hunt. I was really hoping they weren't going to have just a sequel to the Baratheon death, getting killed by a freaking, what was it, just a boar?
Yeah, no, I wasn't worried about that. But I loved everything about all this. I could go into so many details. The like everybody, the weird Lannister guy. What's his name? Jason, right?
Jason Lannister. Yep, he wants to.
What a classic Lannister name, right? Just be Jason.
Yep.
Like only a Lannister could just be Jason.
In a world where your brother's name is Tyrion.
I know, right?
Not his, but Jamie and
I love
Cersei.
It was interesting. He's cool. I like the little Jason because he nails it. He nails exactly what
the
you would
pompous ass
think
of
pompous Lannister. Would be.
Lannister.
Yeah.
Yes.
Like, oh, dude, Castle Rock, so good. But dude,
So,
I have dragons, bro.
Have you tasted our wine? Just bullshit like that.
I mean, could you just imagine telling someone, dude, the sights from my castle when you're up on top are so good? It's like, dude, I ride dragons, bro.
Yeah, he's like, my hunting grounds are much superior to the Kingswood. Okay.
Yeah, I hunt people. I hunt armies on my dragon.
Yeah,
Bite me.
I like how he tried to caveat it. Like, it's not quite as big as being on a dragon. He's like, oh, okay, then why bring it up? Like,
yeah.
you got the tallest tower. You're not compensating, you freaking loser.
Yeah, clown stuff.
Classic.
But I like it. I think it's funny. I think it's cool.
I agree.
I think it was a good bit of expanding the universe. And it's a good contrast to the knight that we get to hang out with throughout the episode. It was much more just obvious loving material. Is it too obvious to say that she's going to end up choosing him? It's got to be, right?
It's got to be. Maybe she'll choose him and then doesn't get to do it because he doesn't have any standing. They definitely dropped that knowledge on us intentionally. Like, as soon as you named me part of the Kingsguard, that's the highest position a Cole has ever held, which I'm like, okay, so clearly he's not like part of one of the big families of Westeros. He's kind of like, what do they call him? Bannerman of one of the other ones type of deal.
Yeah, but I mean, who cares? Right? I think
he's handsome and he's dope. I can't help but root for this guy. Like, honestly, I really hope he turns into one of my favorite characters because he seems like he has the potential to.
I hope so too, but I hope she doesn't choose him. I hope that she shows that she's like, I don't know, a better
invested.
Queen than her dad is a king.
The Kingsguard swear that not to get married. That's a thing because that was the whole reason Jaime Lannister never had to get married because he was part of the Kingsguard and obviously banging his sister.
I think that's the point, right? I think that's why there will be the drama. Cause well, you can't do it, but like obviously we as the audience are going to want them to. I'm going to stick my foot down and I'm going to say I hope she doesn't. I hope she makes the politically correct move.
That might be the turn that we've all kind of been wondering if it was going to happen because she's very obviously shown that she's rebellious. She only listens to the king when it's, a kingly order. She doesn't just listen to him to listen to him. There has to be a real reason for her to do what he says. And I think she's just going to keep doing stuff like that.
I do think it'll be interesting to see how she sort of handles the big decisions because I think it's easy to like want your king or queen to be nice and make all the nice choices that we the audience want. But I think it's more interesting when they make the sort of politically correct move.
Who is the person to choose? I mean, we got a glimpse of, for the record, the aging in the show is a bit ridiculous. Like Corlys' son was in the first episode and he looked like 7, and then all of a sudden he's a handsome looking 23-year-old 2 years later or whatever it is. That's how it seems anyway.
Yeah, I mean it's going to be wonky a little bit, especially because like certain people are going to switch actors, certain people are not. But the answer is I don't know what the right answer is. Probably not her brother. Probably not her 2-year-old brother.
No, not going to be her brother, but like that cousin that the reason that they almost tied the Valyrian blood together again would make a lot of sense. Or maybe we'll get introduced to another option in the next episode that seems the most logical.
I feel like it's a good chance to bring in some Starks. You know what I mean? We all love the Starks.
We do love the Starks, but they're never considered like that. They're important because they guard the North, but even in Game of Thrones, they were kind of like secluded, and the only reason he ever got pulled to King's Landing is because he was named the Hand of the King. They were mostly kind of self-contained type of deal. I mean, I'd be pumped about it.
But
don't get me wrong.
It still is a big, strong army, and it does have an add importance. So maybe it's a more creative answer. I have no idea. I literally no idea. This is one of those things that I don't think that they care what the book did at all. You know what I mean? I don't think that they're gonna hunt her, her love choice based on the book because you could really just choose anyone, and it'll still make sense.
Accomplishes the same type of thing. Yeah. I mean, we got all the southern cities too, like the Kingdom of Flowers or whatever their last name was.
It could be her uncle. I mean, she could choose her uncle. I think
they did that. I didn't like that in the first episode where it was kind of hinting at that. I was like, "Come on, guys! I mean, I know you're Targaryens, but I don't want to see it."
Oh, you better get used to it.
I know the Targaryens do. They keep the bloodline pure.
It's just sort of the way it is.
I've read the books.
So,
yes, I know.
I could see that happening. I could see it being the uncle. Like, you think she's going to choose the knight, and then she chooses the uncle. Even though
Her
she doesn't.
already twice married uncle.
Yeah, because part of it doesn't seem like she doesn't seem to like him. I don't even. But
Well, in the
it
first
is.
episode, they looked like they were thick as thieves, like
Nah, I don't think
kind
so.
of really good friends. She looked like she looked up to him in the first episode. Clearly, that changed,
It
but
seemed to me like she sort of like had a disdain for him. She like understood it, but she was like, "Yeah, you're still kind of a tool, though." You know
I,
that,
I
right?
read it differently than you do, so I guess I don't
Fair
know.
enough.
Oh yeah. Side note: the new throne's kind of wild. They're like, I was made out of thousands of swords, and they didn't make it in the throne. They just make like it up the steps in the background.
They did make the throne bigger.
They did.
The throne is a little bigger, but yeah, you can't. I think I heard a George R. R. Martin interview one time where he talked about it, and he's like, "What do you want them to do? There's not a lot of places that you can put a 50-foot throne. You know what I mean? It doesn't really work that way. You can't. There's not much you could do about it." So,
Yep.
I like that. I like the new throne. I do like the new throne. I would be about that life. I would get that throne.
We haven't had
Somebody-
mention of Viserys' sickness since I think it was mentioned in the second episode, but it wasn't something that was brought up in the third episode. We don't really know what it is because it's not grayscale. I read that they confirmed that
Yeah,
already.
it's not that. Yeah, I mean, he does kind of sort of get sickly, but then they sort of explain it as him just being very depressed and drunk. Actually, I couldn't tell.
Is he
I
gonna
think
die soon? I
he's
feel like
gonna
he's
die.
gonna die. Yeah, I don't know when, but it's got to be sooner rather than later.
That's why the whole idea is this season going to be a single generation? If so, he's dead within an episode or two, for sure. If it's more like they want to follow Rhaenyra for 2 or 3 seasons, then the king might make it to the end of this season before he dies, and that'll be kind of how the season ends. But that's definitely going to be what kills him. I mean, they brought it up for a reason. He's obviously struggling. All we know for sure is that he's going to die at the worst possible time. Right? He's going to die.
Yeah,
right,
maybe
right before it feels like Rhaenyra's going to solidify her spot.
and then right,
he's gonna
yeah,
die.
maybe he's gonna make an announcement that the son isn't gonna be the heir, and then all of a sudden he dies when it's inconvenient, and then the I don't know, small council gets to vote the 2-year-old into the throne type of thing.
Yeah, yeah. I feel like that's how the show's going to end. It's going to end.
Is it
well,
Aegon? Is that the name of the new kid?
Yeah. I feel like Damon's going to play. There's going to be a lot of interesting choices to be made. It seems like next season. I mean, did you watch the whole next episode?
I intentionally don't watch those ever.
I
but
didn't done the first one, and I accidentally done this one because I was just like I was doing stuff and I was picking up my baby and stuff, and I looked over, and I was like, oh, that's what's happening next episode. I was like, oh, okay. But
that isn't that so interesting?
It
Like
just makes me
that's
feel
a
like the show's moving. That's what I'm saying.
that's a whole nother debate where it's like, is that something that people want? I mean, I don't really care for it because it's just like, why would I want to spoil something for myself next week? But at the same time, it's like, here's what you have to look forward to.
Yeah, in some respect. In some of it's like you cut it and you try to theorize. Like, well, did that mean that this was going to happen or this is going to happen? Dude, who knows? Like, all these things.
It reminds me of what is it,
together in
the
such ways.
trash Bachelor or Bachelorette type of thing, where it's just jump cuts. You're like, she's gonna choose this one.
The
Nope.
problem with the Bachelorette party is the Bachelorette stuff is that they they do the same cut
I know.
and they show it in every single commercial, like for the entire 2 hours. And then the
Love
scene
it.
happens, and it's actually just the cut. There was no extra context or anything because there's nothing to show. Terrible show. Don't watch that. Watch.
I
House of Dragon
don't.
instead.
I don't watch them. My wife does though.
Well, hopefully she rises up and watches like I don't know the Rings of Power instead.
Oh, no shot. She's not a fantasy nerd. So I'm going to watch the Rings of Power, Coach. I mean, you can give us your quick notes on the first 2 episodes if you want, but let's finish up this episode here.
let's
Do you have? What else did you want to talk about?
I like the Kingswood. I like Kingswood. So we have the Game of Thrones board game. If you guys are listening, you should go
It
find
takes
it. It's a phenomenal game.
so long, like 7 hours easy. That's not an exaggeration.
I've found that when you don't have a Ron, shout out Ron from Marvel's you don't have Ron around, and you have like a bunch of people who have like a determination to I'm going to play this game, I'm not going to dick around. You can do it in 3 to 4 hours. Anyway.
Okay, well, every time I played it with you guys, it's 7 hours.
No, that's true. Well, it's usually because we have Ron. We love you, Ron. But anyway, so Kingswood. Kingswood looks super cool. All that stuff, like the settings look nice. And it makes me think of the board game. I'm like, oh my god, I need to play this game again now that, like,
More
I
context.
really get it. Like I see more things, I learn more things. Like it just makes me like I want Kingswood because I've seen how beautiful it is now.
Yeah, important things that did happen. Obviously, he was supposed to be killing this the deer. What they call it, a hart. I think they called them harts a bunch of times.
Yes.
I don't know if that's just what they
It's
call
like
deer.
yeah, that's what they call stag. Yeah,
Stags. Yeah.
Heart's a pretty typical fantasy.
Well, they
form.
were tracking down a white one. My camera disconnected, but you could still
see
hear
that.
me. Yeah, you can see that it's not white when they actually capture the one, and then we clearly get to see the white one go to the true heir, if you will.
Right. Yeah.
So
Exactly.
I thought that was interesting.
Very reminiscent of the there being an extra. Oh my God! Why can't I think of the name? Direwolf. Thank you. Very reminiscent
Yes,
of
the extra direwolf.
there being an extra direwolf, showing that he's obviously a true Stark. Obvious stuff. That's what it's supposed to be. That's what makes it cool. That's cool. To me, that's very cool. That she sort of sees the white stag and then she lets it go, which is another interesting choice. Maybe she's deep cuts rejecting her.
Well, I don't think she had enough time to react and kill the thing. I think it's part of it. I don't think she would have if she had the chance. I love that she got to kill the boar. In that scene, the boar didn't die. She got to finish the boar off. In fairness,
He killed the boar.
yeah, he killed the boar, but she got to show up looking like the main character in the new Prey movie, just rolling up to the festivities covered in blood and a dead animal. I was like, that was dope. I'm a big fan. And her white hair just turning pink from the blood. I'm like, good detail.
Yeah,
Good stuff.
that stuff's cool. That whole scene's cool. Her running away was cool. Something about horse chases to me are just infinitely cooler than car chases. I hate car chases.
Well, it's because horses are, real, and it's hard to fake those as much. When cars, you just hook it up to a chassis, and it's like, yeah, well, this isn't really any real stakes.
You can feel the thud of horses as they run. I just love that stuff. I love it. So I was all about that scene. I like her running through the woods.
What was she doing, though? Was she running away? Did it seem like she was, being dramatic and going into the water? Is that what it was implying?
Maybe. I think she was just running away. She was like, fuck this. I'm not like running away permanently, but just like, screw this. I'm getting out of here. I don't want to be around.
I can't blame her, though. Her dad's trying to, pawn her off, which I guess she is of age in this universe, and he's trying to marry her off, but I can understand why she's upset, because it feels like he's trying to ship her off so the new kid can take over.
Right, which is
but
exactly what Jason said. That's exactly what Jason Dunn said.
He did.
I think that's why this episode. That's why this episode is so good. It ties all those little details together. Where
yes, it does.
It'll be nice for her to have a step down the station. He's like, step down the station. She's about
he pitched the idea of becoming the queen of Castle Rock, but actually he would be. What did he call not the king? Is it still called the king? He called it something else later in the episode. Yeah, no. If he were to marry Rhaenyra, he would have to move to King's Landing, and it was essentially king, but there was a name, but it doesn't matter.
The queen's.
Was it like Prince Charles in the royal family, where the guy just
pretty much
straight up died? Yeah.
It's so interesting, right? This idea that everyone else is like, wait, so you're just like the son's the new king, right? Is that kind of? But
I gotta respect Viserys, honestly. He's done some creepy stuff, but only in service of the kingdom, and he does what was expected of him as king. I think hooking up with your daughter's friend's pretty gross, but it's better than hooking up with your 12-year-old cousin. So there's that.
You're getting too bogged down in the age detail thing.
I know.
Right? It's a fantasy world. It's the world. I think he's obviously supposed to be as close to Stark as possible.
Ned Stark, yeah, he does give me Ned Stark vibes a little bit. He's doing what he was responsible.
I'm making the tough choices, but I'm making the good choices, which is obviously like Ned. It's gonna bite him in the ass, is what it's gonna do.
Yeah.
Because rather than the obvious choices, you probably should have just picked your son to be the heir. Your daughter would have hated it.
But then it's just the daughter that hates it, not the entire realm type of thing.
Right. And it feels like this is going to blow up in his
understand.
face, and it's going to create a giant Targaryen war. But that's super interesting.
I think that's the important thing, is they tease it in the very first episode that the only people that can take down the Targaryens are the Targaryens. And that is exactly what's going to happen. Now, who's on what side, we're really going to see Are we going to see the brother eventually, like maybe he does get named the heir, and then Rhaenyra and her cousin Daemon are going to attack King's Landing, or is Rhaenyra staying
right.
King's Landing? There's a lot of things that could happen.
All right, and is it going to fall during this life cycle, or is just the start of the fall going to be during? That's
Right.
what I
I mean,
don't know.
sowing the seed of like, deceit and content for each other type of thing.
But it does feel like the end of this show is really going to end with like the Mad King, probably is what my guess will be. So whether that's 4 seasons from now or
Yeah, the Mad King was only, I think, 2 generations removed from Game of Thrones, and right now we're like 5 or something like that. So yeah, we'll see what happens. That's kind of all I had to say about these 2 episodes. I'm really excited. The show's killing it right now. HBO's just reporting crazy numbers again, and it feels like Game of Thrones is back. Not I don't know if it's quite to that level.
Oh,
There's
it
still
feels
some.
like it's back. It doesn't
There's some
feel
people.
like it's season 8 back, but it feels like it's back. It feels like it's back to where the popularity was in season 4, 5, 6. Sort of the
Right.
heart.
Yeah.
By 8, it was just all pandemonium. But
Well, yeah, and the actors were too famous to be trying to get. Yeah, there was a lot going on behind the scenes that caused 8 to be terrible. Plus, they went off. They off script.
I'm not gonna
Only parts of 8 sucked. Parts of it were pretty cool. Like Arya killing the Night King, that was dope.
Yeah,
the battle on the wall, badass. But then like the garbage with Bran taking over and the rush of
some of the choices I don't love, but
Daenerys turning evil, hated that. That was
love
stupid.
I could argue with it all day. I love season 8. I love everything about it. I think it. Interestingly enough, I watched season 8 before. I had only seen seasons like 1, 2, 7, and 8, and then I went.
That's
back
a weird
and
way
watched
to
all
do
of them.
it.
I just had I just didn't have. I was poor. I didn't have HBO most of my young adult life, and then by the time
Fair
season
enough.
8
Yeah, I
came
mean,
out-
I watched it all at once I finally did get HBO. I think I stole your brother's for a little bit, and then I got my own.
But I love it.
Good
But
stuff.
this show looks fun. You said it is nice to see that it's back. It is gonna be. It's back. It gives something that's not Marvel and Star Wars.
Yeah, I've seen. I don't know if you want to call it memes or just posts online that like this is kind of the time for fantasy TV. Like we've got The Witcher, Sandman, House of the Dragon, and Rings of Power all in the same year, and it feels cool. We're gonna be reviewing most of those on here.
It's very cool. It's like, to me, yeah, I would love for it to come back and be the sword and sandal of before, back when the whole ancient Rome was the cool time period. I'm all about this. So.
Yeah, it's neat. I mean, this made up like medieval style type of thing. Yeah, I mean, the Dark Ages in a little bit. Yeah, it's a made up time period, but everyone seems to manage to be able to live in it, and everyone just kind of like, yeah, that makes sense. There's no cars, people ride horses, and there can be crazy things like dragons. Why not?
Yep, I love it. I love everything about it. I'm all for it. I think the show. I like some of the relationships. Like we said, we're excited for the night and how that's going to develop. I'm excited for. Is Lannister's going to make any push, or any other family is going to make a push to marry Rhaenyra? That's kind of what I'm curious about. Is she? Yeah, I'm just pumped about all of it. So, but I do think it's going to go faster than we think. I think it's already jumping time periods. I think people.
Did they confirm how many
watching the show need to
episodes this season is? Is it 10 episodes? I feel like
don't
it's
know.
10 episodes.
I'm trying not to look, so I don't know the answer.
Okay, well, fair enough. We're probably not going to review Rings of Power at the same time because they're co-releases, and that's just a lot of TV to watch. But if you want to talk about what you liked about the first 2 episodes, sell me on it. Sell our fans on Rings of Power.
Sure, I'll give you. Well, first of all, the production value is absolutely insane. Like,
Well, yeah,
Game of Thrones
Bezos
feels very
has
Game of Thrones,
billions.
and it has House of Dragons feels like Game of Thrones. It's got a lot of CGI. It's very nice. It looks a little clean, which is sort of like the feel that it's going for. Very stylistic, which I like. Rings of Power feels like the Jackson's film. It is lived in. It feels like a real place. Everything about it feels like it exists. So it's, to me, I love it. Everything about it's beautiful. Mwah. The Hobbits, or the Harfoots as they're called in this, because it's prequel stuff.
Prequel stuff.
They're super interesting. They're a little like nomadic lifestyle. They don't live in the Shire. They kind of live on the move. Is cool. That part's interesting. You get to see Khazad-dûm like in its heyday with the Prince Durin and like all that stuff is awesome. If you're a huge lore nerd, you get to see Celebrimbor and all that stuff, which is dope. And you he's the one who makes the rings. So
I think that's my problem with this. I mean, I'm going to watch the show, and I like Lord of the Rings, but it just I'm not a lore head on this specific IP, so it's gonna be a tough one for me, tough sell. But
Yeah, it
maybe
is.
maybe I'll love it.
There's some stuff that's like obvious stuff, right? Oh, here's the darkness. Here's a little. It's a little more heavy-handed, sort of mythical in its feel, right? Everything feels a little mythical. They call it a very soft magic, I guess you'd call it. Things sort of make sense, but they sort of don't. There's like a weird stranger who comes in from a meteor in episode 1, and now you see him in episode 2 a lot. And it's a good, interesting little mystery. Like, is this Gandalf? Is it supposed to be Sauron? It's like, who is this weird magical mystery person? Because it's selling it like it's Gandalf, which is cool, but I sort of don't think it is. So all that kind of stuff, they're playing with the world in a way that is going to be interesting. You're not going to know anything about it because this is the time period that really it's written about in the Silmarillion, but it's never like the story's never told all the way through. You see interesting little tidbits of relationships. It's gonna feel a little mystical. It's gonna feel a little like overly dramatic and just very, oh, I love you because you're the sky and the wind at the same time.
Okay,
You
okay.
dance with the sun. And it's like, okay, I get it. Whereas House of Dragons feels more like an actual conversation. This feels like a very fantasy stuff. But like you said, if you into Lord of the Rings, this is a fun show. It's very cool, and it just looks incredible. Nothing on TV has ever looked as good. I don't think. I think in
All right.
terms of production
Well,
value.
I was gonna watch it anyway, but you did help sell it to me. Maybe we'll have little notes on it at the end of every episode of House of the Dragon for a while. But appreciate you guys tuning in. Appreciate you, Coach, for filling in, and hopefully you stick around for the rest of the show because you're a good time. We do lots of podcasts and stuff. Check out the Marvel Stuff podcast. We drop episodes on Monday. And Coach, you got a new podcast. You want to tell the people about it?
Yeah, absolutely. Like we said, me and Josh, we all have a bunch of different interests, and sports
true.
has been one of them, and football season being the biggest one. Huge sports guy. I love talking about it. I love getting into the story that is sports. So that's sort of what our podcast is about. So if you like sports and you like learning about more of the people and what's happening, and less so about nerdy debates, it's a fun place to be. So check us out. It'll also drop every week, probably on Monday nights, Tuesday morning, to sort of just recap what's going on in the world of sports.
Woo, love it. Thank you guys for tuning in. Love you. Have a good one. Appreciate it. Shout out Noah. See you next week, hopefully.
All right, peace.